Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are going to break down something truly massive. We're unpacking Chapter 5, Universal Franchise and India's Electoral System. We're going to look at the sheer scale, the nuts and bolts, and the foundational ideas behind the world's largest democracy. It's a completely fascinating machine, and we're going to figure out exactly what makes it tick. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today, going from the individual voter all the way up to the highest offices. 1. Universal adult franchise. 2. Secret ballots and nada. 3. The Election Commission of India. 4. Direct and indirect elections. And 5. Challenges and the future. So first up, universal adult franchise. Before we look at the system itself, we really need to understand the fundamental right that powers the whole thing. Listen to this quote from Aladi Krishnaswamy IR during the Constituent Assembly debates back in 1949. He called this an incredibly bold experiment, and honestly, it absolutely was. You have to remember, before independence, only about 13% of Indians were actually allowed to vote. So the framers of the Constitution took this massive leap of faith. They decided that voting wouldn't just be a privilege for the few, but a fundamental right for all. Which brings us to the core definition of universal adult franchise. It simply means that every adult citizen, meaning anyone 18 and older, gets one vote, and every single vote carries the exact same value. Zero discrimination based on caste, creed, religion, gender, education, or wealth. What's especially cool is that India granted women the right to vote right from the very beginning. To put that into perspective for you, a highly developed nation like Switzerland didn't grant women the right to vote until 1971. So India's vision was incredibly progressive right out of the gate. Now, what's really interesting about this is that universal franchise isn't just a legal rule. It's a powerful social equalizer. It bridges these deep societal barriers because everyone's voice matters equally. It fosters real civic engagement, right? People know they actually hold the power to shape their future and hold their representatives accountable. On Election Day, it doesn't matter who you are, everyone stands in the exact same line, totally equal. Moving on to part 2, secret ballots and nota. To really grasp the everyday mechanics of how a vote is cast, let's scale things down to a simple classroom. Imagine a class rep election at, say, Suryodaya School. You've got 3 kids running. First step, campaigning. Posters go up, speeches are made, then comes voting day. The teacher acts as the election officer, making sure everything is totally fair. She sets up a voting booth so the students can mark their choice in absolute privacy. This secret ballot guarantees no one feels pressured by their friends. She even provides a braille ballot for a visually impaired student, so the process is 100% accessible. Finally, all those votes go into a sealed box for counting. This little classroom microcosm, that's exactly how our national process works. But wait, what if a student looks at the ballot and just doesn't want to vote for any of the 3 candidates? They need an out. And that perfectly illustrates the concept of nota, or none of the above. It's an actual option on Indian voting machines that lets you reject all the candidates if you think none of them are up to the job. Now, it doesn't change the immediate mathematical winner of the election, but it sends a quiet, incredibly powerful message to political parties. Hey, we're participating, but you need to give us better options. All right, part 3, the Election Commission of India. So, we've seen the micro-level mechanics. Now let's scale the narrative back up to the entire nation and meet the actual referees running this massive show. Established in 1950, the Election Commission of India, or the ECI, is an independent constitutional body. And that word independent is absolutely crucial here. They are not controlled by whoever is in power. The ECI handles the mind-blowing responsibility of overseeing the entire process, conducting elections for the Lok Sabha, the Rajya Sabha, state legislative assemblies, and even the president and vice president. And this brilliantly illustrates just how monumental that job is. 968 million. That is the staggering number of eligible voters in the 2024 general elections. Nearly 1 billion people. To pull that off, the ECI had to set up and manage over 1 million polling stations. We're talking from the highest mountain peaks to the deepest forests, literally ensuring no voter is left behind. So how do you manage that kind of chaos and keep things fair? Well, the ECI enforces something called the Model Code of Conduct, or MCC. Think of this as the ultimate rulebook for election season. It lays out very specific do's and don'ts for political parties and candidates. The biggest thing it does is prevent the party currently in power from using government resources like state funds or transport for their own campaigns. They're also banned from suddenly announcing new financial grants or schemes right before the polls just to win over voters. It keeps the playing field totally level. Number 4, direct and indirect elections.
We know who runs the elections, but let's talk about who we're actually electing, because India uses different systems depending on the office. Let's break down the two most common ones, MPs and MLAs. An MP, or Member of Parliament, is elected directly by you and me to the national Lok Sabha. The whole country is carved up into 543 constituencies for this, and the goal is to form the national government. An MLA, or Member of Legislative Assembly, is elected to represent you in your state's assembly, to form the state government. Both of these are direct elections, using what's called the first-past-the-post system. That just means whoever gets the most votes in that specific constituency wins the seat. Simple as that.
So the crucial point here is that not all elections are direct. We also have indirect elections. When it comes to the Rajya Sabha, that's the upper house of parliament, or the President of India, the common citizen doesn't go to a polling booth for them. Instead, the representatives we already voted for do the voting for us. Rajya Sabha members are elected by MLAs, and the President? Elected by both elected MLAs and elected MPs. They use a pretty complex method called the single transferable vote, where representatives rank candidates by preference, which ensures a fair proportional representation of all the states.
Oh, and before we move on, there's a really unique quirk about the Rajya Sabha. Unlike the Lok Sabha, which usually gets dissolved every 5 years for fresh general elections, the Rajya Sabha is a permanent house. It literally never fully dissolves. The members serve 6-year terms, and it's staggered perfectly so that exactly 1/3 of the members retire every 2 years. This guarantees that there's always continuous governance and stability at the national level. And finally, Part 5, Challenges and the Future.
As we wrap things up, we have to take a step back and look at the health of this massive democratic machine. Because honestly, a system this huge is never without its friction points. The source material highlights several critical challenges facing India's electoral system today. For one, there is deep concern over the massive growing influence of money in campaigning. Then you have the persistent issue of candidates with criminal records contesting elections. And perhaps most worryingly, there's a rising trend of voter apathy. People just deciding not to vote at all, which is especially noticeable in some urban areas. Ultimately, though, the system's strength relies entirely on the people. An aware, vigilant, and active voter is for sure the absolute strongest safeguard against these challenges.
Which brings us right to the future and a final provocative thought to leave you with today. We are living in a digital age. Campaigns happen on Instagram Reels and online debates just as much as they do at physical in-person rallies. So you have to ask yourself, is the rapid spread of information on social media actually making us more informed and strengthening our democracy? Or is the flood of misinformation and online echo chambers just confusing the electorate? It's a massive question, and how we answer it is going to define the future of the world's largest democracy. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep asking those big questions.